Saygıdeğer konuklar, Türkiye Sermaye Piyasaları Kongresi'nin ikinci gününde Uluslararası Finans Merkezleri Arası Eşgüdüm Getireceği Fırsatlar konulu CFA Society İstanbul'un sponsorluğundaki panelimize hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Şimdi normalde I would like to invite to the stage, but you can see it as so I will recognize you to our guests, please. Moderatörümüz Profesör PREM University of Access, muhasebe profesörü. Konuşmacılarımız Dr. Robert Barnes, Turkuaz Londra Borsası Grubu CEO'su ve BİRİNCİL Piyasalar Küresel Başkanı. Diğer bir konuşmacımız Daniel Galisea, Fransa'nın Ankara Büyükelçiliği Ekonomi Müsteşarı, Bölgesel Ekonomi Servisi Müdürü. Sayın Hubertus Feit, Frankfurt Main Finans Genel Müdürü ve konuşmacımız Sayın Zeynep Aslan, Türkiye İş Konseyi Lüksemburg Bölümü Satış Başkanı, Kıdemli Portföy Yöneticisi ve Yönetim Kurulu üyesi. İyi paneller.
Well, good morning and welcome to a panel session. We have a distinguished group on our panel representing a vast amount of experience and expertise from other capital markets in places adjacent to Turkey. They represent experience from Frankfurt, Luxembourg, France and UK. Maybe Turkey will become part of this collection, or maybe Turkey has a separate path in terms of developing capital markets. So I will invite each member to speak for a maximum of 7 minutes, and after that we can then have some questions and discussion. So I will ask you maybe to speak first, and then we will go down the line. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Sicker. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm good morning and welcome from my side. It's good to be again in Istanbul. It's a great place whenever I come here. And again, we're discussing opportunities for the Istanbul Financial Center, what needs to be done. Whenever I come here, I wonder why the very start and the very discussion is so much inspiring and dynamic that I could see that basically you will, in any case, be one of the foremost financial centers in that very region. Let me tell you why. Because the world has been changing in the last couple of years in a way that probably very few people understood. There are 3 main lines of dynamic. First of all, the emerging new financial centers in the emerging countries follow the economic dynamism and the growth in those very countries, and certainly Turkey is one of the most dynamic and most promising of those emerging economies. Secondly, after the financial crisis in 2008, the entire structure of the financial system has undergone a massive change that has led to more regulation, more money laundering control, and so forth and so forth. And that needs also to have more knowledge on the ground in the respective countries. And that would also lead to, do we have some
problems? So just you carry on.
Yeah, okay. Is that stopping now? Okay. And the third one, the third big event that's changing the financial center landscape is certainly Brexit. Let me talk a little bit about the later. At the start of 2016, I think nobody could have imagined that something like a Brexit referendum would have happened. And it has since changed the financial center landscape massively. As I'm sure you're all fully aware, London is the world's biggest and foremost financial center. It is basically the financial center of the world. However, it is also, for the Eurozone, the key financial center, and as I'm sure you're fully aware, is your size and your influence also very much depends on how strong your home market is and how dominated you are in your home market. And as until now, for London, the home market was entire Europe, was the entire Eurozone. And that is going to change with Brexit massively. How does it impact now? First of all, there is a rule within the European Union that is called passporting. It allows you, as soon as you have a financial product approved, to export it in the entirety of the Union of 28 nations. So that makes life very easy. You set up in one country, you get approval in one country, you export financial services products in 28. The other key issue, and that is coming now under heavy review, is the fact that, and here the second and the third aspect of what I mentioned come together, is that with EMIR, one of the regulations that followed the financial crisis in 2008, the so-called clearing of OTC derivatives had to move onto CCPs. London managed to have with the LCH ClearNet the leading CCP for euro-denominated clearing, which is about $500 billion market, to give you the size. And this was right from the beginning the idea of the European Central Bank, who said, we want to have overview over this very critical junction in the new financial system. However, the United Kingdom's government sued the ECB and won the case in front of the European Court of Justice. Now, with Brexit, the United Kingdom no longer recognizes or wants to recognize the judgments of the European Court of Justice. And hence, the entire discussion is open. So two big events will change the landscape: passporting and the reorganization of clearing. Passporting basically will mean that banks will have to relocate into the remaining 27 members. As things stand now, Frankfurt was the one who gained most, 4 out of 5 big US banks, 4 out of 5 big Japanese banks, 2 out of 4 big British banks, and numerous other have decided on relocating to Frankfurt, so we're pretty happy about that. Nevertheless, we maintain that we believe at the end of the day, the Brexit is a bad thing. It is bad for Europe, it's bad for Germany, and is worst of all for the United Kingdom. However, we've been maintaining that we never should waste a good crisis, and the crisis it is, so we took opportunity of it. So sorry for that, but we would be happy to give up those advantages if the United Kingdom comes back. The chances, however, are very slim. How does that all impact the financial center here? It impacts you in the way that in the past you had a solar system with London the solar, and you had a lot of planets and moons around that solar. But now you will have a more diverse financial center system. You will definitely have many more centers, and that is a big opportunity for Turkey, and that is the last word, because I know you're giving me 7 minutes, and I think I'll have only 4 seconds left. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Well, our next speaker is Robert Barnes from the London Stock Exchange. Robert, well, you've got a few challenges thrown to you here, which may well have impact on Turkey's aspirations as well. So perhaps you can give us your thoughts.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Professor. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting a humble practitioner to address such a distinguished audience. And ladies and gentlemen, UK and Turkey, London and Istanbul, London Stock Exchange Group, and Borsa Istanbul, we share values and a vision for an open access marketplace that delivers the best results on a continuous basis. And we share principles like integrity, innovation, partnership, excellence. And I was inspired hearing the opening remarks and the panel sessions yesterday. I just wanted to share with you, as a humble student, what I heard, so you know that I was listening. I was very impressed with the focus on innovation, the opportunity to promote an equity culture, financial inclusion. In fact, reminding us when Turkey was holding the presidency of the G20 in 2015, it was all about inclusiveness, implementation, and investment. And it was great to hear on that panel of increasing foreign direct investment. You had great global companies like Unilever showing how they were easily able to invest significantly in Turkey. We were able to see how great banks like BBVA and Guarantee Bank work together. And what's the insight? The insight as financial centers, if we connect, we thrive. And I think we all know in this community that the network effect is what increases the ability to encourage investment and cross-border business in our respective centers. I also think it's important to understand why an equity culture is so important. I must compliment the chairman of the Capital Markets Board. Yesterday, he delivered an absolute masterclass articulating the global trends in rising of debt, but the very positive value of equities. And I'd just like to add to that because there's going to be an increasing demand for growth. The title of this conference is Going for Growth. And as we look globally in developed countries, we see a demographic where people are growing older and living longer, which is a good thing. But of course, it also requires all of us to be responsible for our own long-term financial return through pensions. So the term that we use are direct contribution pensions, where the pension funds are investing for the long-term returns. And what's fascinating, I will refer to a Wise Men report, you can Google it, came out in 2001, commissioned by the economic and finance ministers of Europe. Go to page 74, there's a very famous example. It says, if the average individual has a career of 40 years and they want to retire on 35% of their final salary, if they can get real returns of growth of just 2%, the individual needs to pay away 20% of that gross salary every year for 40 years to get that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, 2015 was also a surprise in January. How many people remember January 2015, the surprise announcement by the Swiss National Bank? They took away the cap off the euro. The next week, coincidentally, introduction of quantitative easing in continental Europe, effectively introducing negative interest rates in continental Europe, Switzerland, and the Nordics, like Japan. And what that emphasizes is the importance, the need for growth. And we tend to see two areas of particular focus for growth. One, the equity culture of blue chips, but increasingly mid and small cap companies. And number two, the desire to gain exposure to do long-term investment in companies from countries that don't have negative interest rates. That includes emerging markets. It includes Turkey. Now, I do want to also compliment Necmettin Bey from ISPAT. He gave this beautiful presentation. Now, I hold this up. This is available on the internet. He gave 10 great examples of why to invest in Turkey. Now, what's amazing is we know progress. It's an equation. It's motivation plus ability. Well, for those of us as humble market operators, we don't do any financial promotion. I think that case is very well made. But we are very interested in the enabling business, to give ways for investors to access the markets globally. And if we think about the example yesterday, the companies providing foreign direct investment into Turkey, that is a positive bringing that investment into Turkey directly from company to company. On the 23rd of October in London, it was my great privilege in the exchange to host an Invest Istanbul event with the World Business Angels. These are angel investors from the UK directly investing into the early stage companies in Turkey. And of course, when companies actually list in our respective financial centers, it's effectively enabling the global investors active in those financial centers to effectively provide investment into the local country. So ladies and gentlemen, I am quietly optimistic. I think there's lots of upside opportunity from an equity business. Why? Because as we know, most investors in continental Europe tend to rent rather than buy property. At a time over the last 20 years when interest rates have come down and property has grown, that great wealth effect has probably missed many. The culture of investing just in maybe your traditional bank accounts or bonds need to be complemented also by products that will have growth. That includes equities. And if anyone ever speaks to a chief financial officer or the head of a company, in the current environment, everyone is looking at how to increase adjusted operating profit and margin for growth. And that includes the ability to introduce productivity. And for those of you that were also here yesterday listening to the professor from Chicago, he gave some lovely examples from the book about why states fail, but more importantly, what are the institutions that make communities succeed. And I remember writing down, inclusion is success, extraction can work, but it can be challenging. So I think the opportunity is to be financially inclusive. And therefore, if we take a look at where will productivity come, it can also come from the world of fintech. You may have heard that word started to really become part of our lexicon in 2015. And I will just finish by saying, through our excellent cooperation, through the leadership with Borsa Istanbul, we are just about to start a series of roundtables to try and encourage more fintech, but also more cross-border activity amongst our financial centers to try to provide that type of productivity to add to the equity culture which we fully embrace. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. If not, I certainly will have a lot of questions afterwards. We're also very fortunate that we now have amongst us a person, that's Zeynep Aslan, who's experienced in these matters in Turkey and in Europe. So give us your thoughts, Zeynep.
Thank you very much. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to first thank to Capital Markets Board for their nice invitation to me to come back to my country again. Of course, I would like to thank Hubertus to give the details of how the European markets will be affected after the Brexit and how the markets will react. And now I will try to give you the information about where can be the next financial center in terms of some topics within the continental Europe and outside of the Europe, because as the board member of Luxembourg Turkish Business Council, I'm personally working to promote Turkey within the continental Europe and also Luxembourg's strengthening Luxembourg's situation within the Europe and and outside of the Europe. So I would like to tell you the situation of Luxembourg. Actually, the Luxembourg regulator, CSSF, is very competent in terms of the cross-border activities. And these cross-border activities include mostly mutual funds, private equity activities, private banking activities, and insurance activities. Within Luxembourg, we have a separate regulator for insurance companies, and that is the reason why big insurance companies actually prefer to be in Luxembourg. And also Luxembourg is a center for the payment companies. Many payment companies are based in Luxembourg, like PayPal, Amazon Pay, Rakuten, Mercedes Pay, China Union Pay, And about the insurance companies, I would like to give you some names like AIG, CNA Hardy, FM Global, Hiscox, Liberty Mutual. The effect of the Brexit that we will see in Europe, I think, is not going to change a lot in terms of the situation of the markets. We're expecting, or most of the executives are expecting, that the current situation will preserve its situation, and maybe there will be some changes after the transition period, if there is any. And I would like to tell you that we are expecting that Istanbul is providing a big opportunity for international investors also, as Robert said. And we're expecting that Frankfurt and Paris in Europe will be the center, maybe in terms of the trading and the investment banking. And regarding the mutual fund administration and private banking and private equity and insurance activities, Luxembourg will be the center.
Thank you. Well, we have Daniel Galiceros with a unique experience in working at the French Treasury as well as in Middle Eastern countries, Saudi especially, and in other places. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, Daniel, on how various regulators and countries may well be able to cooperate, perhaps develop a common ground, and perhaps help Turkey to become a major force in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In my mind, in my perspective, a financial place must rely on several strengths. First of all, a critical mass of key economic players, but it has to be as well recognized as a hub in key activities, and then it has to have an attractive financial ecosystem. So in that regards, Paris Europlace has some major attractiveness cards. Paris is a complete and innovative financial center based on the 6th largest economy on the world. Paris financial center markets are fueled by major companies, leaders in their area. 31 French companies are among the world leaders in their respective industries. Paris Europlace is also the largest banking sector, welcoming 5 French banks among the top largest banks in Europe. Paris ranks first in terms of market capitalization. Paris Europlace is then an access to the largest Eurozone stock exchange in terms of market capitalization, in terms of equity trading, in terms of listed companies. France has the largest European bond market as well, with a 45% market share. But Paris is also recognized as a hub in key activities where it has competitiveness advantages. Paris is leading the OTC derivative markets. First, the place is first in continental Europe in terms of forex and interest rate derivatives. Paris leads the asset management industry in continental Europe. For global private equity funds, entering in the European Union, Paris has some important advantage. Number one, private equity market after UK in terms of investments, invested capitals. Paris is specialized in small and mid-cap investment, whereas London is mainly predominantly investing in large caps. Paris boasts many advantages for fintechs. It's important, has been a remark. The French fintech ecosystem has access to capital and talent pool. Paris is a marketplace that contributes to sustainable development. Paris is a leading green financial center. But Paris as also an attractive financial economic ecosystem. We have in France sophisticated, reliable, and reactive regulators internationally recognized. They are also appreciated as they are the most responsive in the world, and they provide advices especially to newcomers. Less than 2 weeks, for example, less than 2 weeks working day for fund admission, application in full English to reduce administrative costs, as well as to reduce complexity for foreign companies. In terms of private equity, the Regulator Agility Program provides bilingual coaches or a 2-week ticket for companies already approved abroad. So the place has a large access to diversified pool of talents, and there are some well-structured associations in the financial industry, the banking sector, in the insurance, in the asset management, ensuring a constant and constructive dialogue. There are two main elements also are needed to attract financial investment: pro-business environment and attractive personal environment. In that regard, France is reforming to attract investors and welcome financial institutions. The Macron administration delivers the most comprehensive reform agenda in decades. Corporate tax are being gradually lowered from 33% to 25% in the next 5 years. Once we'll have overhauled our tax system, there is a commitment for stability and predictability. France offers the most favorable EU tax regime for expatriates thanks to its repatriation scheme, which has been, the regime has been recently improved. Now it's applicable for 8 years instead of 5 years presently, and include exemption of the payroll and payroll tax or repatriation bonuses. And a set of financial specific measures aim at making Paris even more competitive, with a focus on the asset management industry has been embarked. So the French regulator creates the 2-week tickets, I mentioned it, so it's a fast-track pre-approval process for companies already approved abroad and wanted to set up in France. And the credit institution, financial institution, have a benefit from a unique entry point. A major reform has been made also in terms of labor law. So the labor law is more flexible and is being modernized through executive orders. The reform implements profound change to the dialogue between employers and employees to ease redundancy and secure the cost of dismissal. And this reform came into force at the end of September 2017 and is accompanied by a reduction of labor costs. But Paris Europlace can also count on its great location in the heart of Europe, its capacity in terms of office spaces, the third in the world after New York and Tokyo, but it's of course much cheaper. And Paris is a very dynamic capital and offers the best environment for EU expats, especially with, you know, about probably the high-quality healthcare system and infrastructures which satisfy the most local and expat residents. And in addition to a large number of international schools, Paris has a very renowned French business school, so companies have then an access to abundant and qualified human resources. And no need last but not least, the lifestyle environment, which exceptional cultural opportunities. Thank you.
Yes.
Just another point that I would like to add in terms of the international situation of Luxembourg. Actually, as a known fact that Luxembourg is a small country with nearly 600,000 people living in Luxembourg, but I think it is the biggest international area in terms of the language skills and the system that how it works. Because Luxembourg City is, if I'm not mistaken, 75% of Luxembourg City is foreigners, and 47% of the whole country are foreigners. And the whole system is organized in a way that the system would work actually in English. Normally it is Luxembourgish, French and German. These are official languages, but if you would like to communicate with CSSF in English, and if you would like to do business, which actually I wouldn't say that if you would like to do business, but the business environment and the business language is English in Luxembourg, you wouldn't have any difficulty to communicate with any kind of authority in Luxembourg in English. And actually in Luxembourg, if I'm not mistaken, there is 170 different nationalities living. So it is a true international place, and the whole ecosystem is providing to foreigners in terms of the living standards and in terms of the schooling, which the schooling having all types of European and British high school baccalaureate, A-level baccalaureate, which is providing a really comfortable area. And another thing is, authorities are working in Luxembourg to cooperate and to find a solution to a problem. If there's a problem, any kind of official authority comes together, discuss about that and find a solution to that. It is not about trying to promote one name, because actually Luxembourg do not have any national champion, so the jealousy is really very small in the country. And I don't know, for example, financial services, you want to solve your problem with fintech, or you need some regtech, there is a special institution called Alhoft, which is there to provide you solutions. So any type of financial problems, that is any type of financial problems within the excellency of Luxembourg services that's provided within Luxembourg is really provided in the best way.
I'd like to thank our panel for their expert thoughts and opinion. I'm sure there are lots of questions, and I would like to invite people to ask questions. But before that, I would like to exercise the chair's prerogative and get my question and comment in first, in case there's no time left afterwards. We heard a lot about opportunities, but what about the darker side of having a strong financial center? The countries with the largest, the strongest financial centers received the biggest economic shock from the banking crash. Is Turkey ready for that, if that is the way it wants to emulate? The countries with the largest financial center generally find there are lots of graduates go into finance industry and doing financial engineering rather than real engineering, and the manufacturing and other scientific sectors are completely starved of skilled labor. Is Turkey ready to cope with that? Has it got a plan? Has it got a strategy? In other words, what I'm saying is there is a finance curse. There's a lot of literature. People talk about the resource curse for developing countries, that they won the nature's lottery, got a lot of natural resources, but they are poor. And we find now that there is a curse, that countries with a large financial sector seem to be lagging in other ways. UK has very high income and wealth inequalities. Most European countries do. US in particular has very large levels of inequalities, which can breed social instability, social problems. So if we are talking about the opportunities, what else needs to be done? And we can't really take advantage of these opportunities unless we are able to manage the darker side, the negative consequences. So the danger, what I'm saying is that people are thinking about focusing on the opportunities, but maybe we should be thinking about the rest as well. And again, what exactly is the finance industry proposing to us? It is proposing mobility of capital while people are imprisoned within a defined territorial jurisdiction. Is that the future, that are finance free, but human beings are imprisoned unless they are of some use to finance, that they can go from country A to B? Otherwise, that's your lot. You have a bigger prison. It's called the country, that's where you stay. So while some of you are sort of thinking about a question, and hopefully I'm sure you will have some, I'll just invite if any panel member wants to respond to those provocations. Okay.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for those provocations. And yes, the finance industry has a tendency to be extremely volatile, and it has a history of crashes. When you talk about attracting engineering talent into financial rather than the real engineering, I think the place least concerned about that is definitely Germany, as we have a strong tradition in engineering culture. Nevertheless, there is a balance to be made between both, because on the one hand side, financial inclusion, financial services has a huge impact on wealth of nations. It does create a proper allocation of capital. It makes sure that innovation thrives if the market is efficient, so there is a big gain to be made. However, you're right, there is also a big loss to be made. And that loss needs to be controlled, and you do need a good regulation, a good supervision, and the least of all, you need something like a regulatory arbitrage or a regulatory race to the bottom. I think that is something which the regulators in Germany really stood up and made clear that this will not be the case. Neither in context with Brexit will it be accepted, nor will it happen in the race now on who is going to take what. So I think the question is clearly understood, and what we also see here is it is not only the quality of regulation, it's also the consistency of regulation, which is very important to enable the actors to adjust to the new environment. And to sum up what you say, so I think besides the United Kingdom, I think there are very few other countries who have not yet to gain on the wealth ladder, but I completely agree there is a curse when the relative weight of the industry is too big in the economy.
Okay, thank you. Robert, do you want to say?
Well, thank you, Chairman. Listening to your question, I thought the one country in the world that can teach many about what it means to be creative is Turkey. If you look at Turkey, tripled the income per GDP. It's a great creative construction, manufacturing company, and we look at financial centers. What are we really doing? We are taking risk capital from investors and converting it into working capital. We are delivering that capital into the places that are most creative. And if we think about the talks yesterday about the importance of financial inclusion, a great priority for growth, it comes down to what we heard from the professor yesterday, the institutions that promote that. I'd just like to highlight two in this room that are also working about cross-border cooperation. ISPAT is the great example in terms of promoting why Turkey. And very humbly, within the UK, you have Steve Bourne, put your hand up, from the City UK, which is representing the UK Financial Centre. When we say UK Financial Centre, we really mean everyone is welcome globally to participate to help become very efficient. I might also recognize Andrew Price and Vefa Hanim from the consulate, who have also been very supportive in how we can work together. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in innovation, if you're interested in international best practice and working together, there's lots of opportunity for all of us as we embrace the new equity culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Okay. So, did you want to respond?
Well, I completely agree with Robert, and I think that Turkey is having a big potential also, and we have worked with Capital Markets Board and Invest in Turkey Group to prepare 2 seminars in Luxembourg about startups and real estate funds. And related to family office regulations, maybe we will continue to work with Capital Markets Board again. And it's vice versa, because we are bringing some business from Turkey to Luxembourg and some business from Luxembourg to Turkey regarding the Business Council. So yes, I believe this mutual partnership will work very well.
Okay, Daniel?
I will have 2 remarks regarding Turkey potential. First, I think that in a very competitive environment, to ensure its development, Istanbul has to find a niche, an area of specialization where it has a key competitiveness advantage, an area of specialization that positions it on the financial market world map. It can be financial, it can be Islamic banking, it can be linked to innovation. Second remark, a financial center place has to be attractive to attract large bond issuers, to attract foreign and local capital. So it has to be welcoming and credible. It brings back to the regulatory and supervisory framework. The quality and the agility of the supervision and regulation are essential to give credibility and confidence to financial institutions.
Thank you. Okay, let's have a couple of questions from the audience. Who would like to ask? Okay, one there. Another one? Any other person? While we're heading there, because we can take a couple of questions together. Anybody else? They're too shy. Okay.
This one's on? Yep, thank you, panel. My name's Steve Bourne, I'm from the City UK, and we represent the UK financial related professional services sector. And I'd like to thank the panel for describing, almost per city, the real value, the real constituents of what makes a good international financial centre. The question I have is, how can you add to that value by cooperating between financial centres? We're hearing about the growth of Istanbul, and I think that from all the talent that we've heard, from all the opportunity of cooperating with Istanbul, is going to be significant in its development. So I'd really like to just ask the panel that one question. How best do we add value to this cooperation between financial centres?
Thank you very much. Anybody else wants to ask a question? Then we can take 2 together. Okay, just one brave soul. So, okay, would the panel like to respond? How can we add value through cooperation? Or is it that the nation states seeking competitive edge or a race to the bottom, engaging in race to the bottom to get competitive advantage, do they get in the way? So very, very short sort of replies, please. Well, maybe we start with Daniel. Daniel, do you want to respond? No? Okay, Zeynep?
Well, in terms of the cooperation with Istanbul as Luxembourg, with Luxembourg and Istanbul, I can say that Luxembourg has specific expertise areas in terms of the cross-border distribution, mutual funds, administrative services, management company services, private equity, private banking, and insurance companies, again, administrative and management services, even with the front office services. And Luxembourg is having this expertise for more than 40 years now. It is in minimum 3 languages. Everything is written. You can find any kind of documentation within these 3 languages in the internet and from the authorities. So Turkey needs to improve some of the regulative issues within these topics, and I believe Luxembourg is ready to provide any type of advisory services within these topics.
Okay, thank you. Robert, for a minute.
Thank you very much. I think the ingredients for increasing success in cooperating with financial centers are 3. raising the visibility of the value proposition, increasing participation, including cross-border, and innovating together with the customers. So number one, I want to thank the Capital Markets Board because as a regulator, you provide the framework within which all of us can behave as entrepreneurs. And we work together across the different centers. I'll give you an example. So tomorrow, it is my privilege to welcome a company about £1 billion in market capitalization. Where is it from? It's raising money from Iceland. It does business in China. The advisors are from America, UK, but the lead bank leading the deal is from the Netherlands. So the idea is you come together in a community to help get the business done. And we'd love to have you come and participate with us, participate here in Turkey to grow the business, but also come and do business in the UK. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hubert?
I would like to focus on three areas where cooperation is attractive. First, talent. Second, infrastructure. And the third, I would believe, is technology. In terms of talent, when it comes to education, massive open courses, we will see an entirely new education world, and I know and understand here in Istanbul there is a massive strive to increase financial education on all levels. Second is infrastructure. It is from internet connections, market infrastructure, and so forth. We have heard about the key role also Istanbul plays, and so forth. But I would also add to that infrastructure supervision. There has been a long-standing cooperation, for example, between our central bank and the central bank in Turkey. So unified supervision is also very key. And last but not least, technology. As we speak, my colleagues meet with the European Financial Center Roundtable in Tallinn. And it is all about sustainable finance and technology. And what we see is that the future of fintech very much lives on the technology is going to be spread far and wide. And that's why we believe these are the three key areas of cooperation, and that's where we very much engage, amongst others, also in Istanbul, and we were very happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got a couple of seconds, or can we carry on just for 10 more seconds? Okay, Daniel, sorry, I'll let you have the last word.
Thank you, last one. Okay, I mentioned the importance of the regulatory framework and the expertise of the French regulators in this area, and I believe that French regulators can provide assistance and support to Istanbul Place.
Well, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard the future is bright, future is Turkey. So with that pleasant thought, I'll bring this session to an end, and please thank the panel members.
Thank you very much. Şimdi konuşmacılarımıza ve moderatörümüze plaketlerini vermek üzere Türkiye Sermaye Piyasaları Birliği Yönetim Kurulu üyesi Sayın Gülsevin Çiftli'yi sahneye davet ediyorum.